the issue I had on the F-16, and I was like, well, maybe we can make these these same mats but larger for tools, and yeah, just made it a lot of different changes throughout the years. Took me about 3 years of prototyping in my basement until it finally got into sales. So yeah.
So you were, solving a problem that you had personal experience with and was really familiar to you. And how do you think that starting with a problem that you know so well has helped you build Grypmat as a business?
Yeah, so I knew firsthand the problem, and that gave me a lot of credibility when selling the product, and it also gave me a lot of deep details of knowing how mechanics work and operate. So when I talk about the credibility, it's kind of if you're going to buy swimming goggles, would you buy them from me or would you buy them from Michael Phelps? Michael Phelps has all the credibility in the swimming world. So, someone that he's a user, you know that he's, really reliant on his goggles and he's used them before. And I think that serves to a lot of startups where are you a user? The founder, are they a user? What is their credibility? What's their history? So yeah, I think it's super important.
Right. So before we talk about some of the success that Grypmat has, I want to talk first about failure. So Grypmat's growing, it's getting out there, but starting a business is obviously super hard. So what do you think your single biggest failure has been as a business owner, and how have you overcome that?
Yeah, I think the term failure is pretty interesting in in the world in general. I honestly don't like to say failure. I like to say I learn. So I guess what we were talking about before is I call it the C+ method. So just get something that works. Just get a C+. You don't need to get an A+. You don't have to get something perfect. Because what happens is a lot of times you'll be in a situation let's say you're making a promo video. You want the promo video to be perfect. But to get the promo video to be perfect, that might take 2 months. Where you could get a C+ video done in probably 2 hours. So I would rather go get the C+ video and have it for 2 months, and then later get the perfect video instead of go 2 months without any video, and then there's a lot of opportunity that's missed when you do that. And then also when you are constantly striving for perfection, when you achieve the perfection, oftentimes it's not exactly what you need. So you just waste a bunch of time on something that you don't need.
So that kind of goes in my next question is, I know you don't like the word failure, but in talking about startups in the Midwest, there's this common fear of failure mentality. So why do you think it is important to have these learning experiences where maybe things didn't go how you planned? How can you really use those to improve your business?
Yeah, I guess, I don't know if I was talking to you about that, but I guess, the failure parts are where you're learning the most, and that's when you get a lot of reflection on your company. It's kind of like if there's 2 football teams, a winner and a loser, who's going to run more laps the next day? Probably the loser. Who's going to look at more film the next day and see how bad their defense was doing? Probably the loser. The winners are taking the next day off. Actually, Lucas said the other day, the time that you get scored on is typically right after you score, because you get lazy after you do something really good. Yeah, that was Lucas, not me.
Good job, Lucas. Great. So now we're going to talk about Shark Tank, which was not a failure. It's good stuff. So your episode aired in November 2017. You got 3 sharks. You got Lori, Richard, and Mark for $360,000 for 30% of the company. So first, we're coming up on about a year later. So tell us just kind of big picture overview of how that experience has changed Grypmat as a business.
Yeah, there's just from the show, there's been a lot of credibility. Also, we're part of 3 Sharks Network, so therefore, there's a lot of opportunity that can happen through that. So, one of the biggest values from being on Shark Tank is actually the other companies that have been on the show. So there's a private Facebook group called Shark Tank Pals. So if you've been on stage, you can be added to the group. And typically, if we ever have a question, it's something we can easily post in there. Anything really. If it's a question about Amazon, a question about returns, or how to hire people or anything, and that's been super beneficial. Or there's a lot of like brand strengthening. For example, like us being with Richard Branson, working with the Virgin brands. We were doing a lot with Virgin Racing. About a month ago, I was in LA with Virgin Orbit, so they're using it for their, on the inside of the rockets. And if you look at check out Virgin Orbit, they're just now they're about to launch their rocket for the first time. So it's super exciting, and it's super cool to be like a part of their mission. Yeah.
So tell us more about how specifically you plan to use that funding to help the business.
A large portion of the capital has been just put into more product, just for inventory, just so we can do larger deals. We got a couple, recently we did a deal with Mac Tools, and with Mac Tools and a couple other entities, in a month we sold, I think it was actually 2 weeks we sold 15,000 Grypmats. So the thing is, having the capital to, basically we got to upfront the capital to get that product, and then there's quite a bit of lag time of the sales process and then getting paid. So yeah.
Great. So let's back up. So tell us a little bit about how you prepared for your pitch for Shark Tank.
Yeah. So the producer. So when you get in the top 1,000, you'll get a producer. So the producer will basically, there's multiple producers. Each producer will basically take 100 people and narrow it down to about 10 to 15. And the producer just told me, write out 50 questions that you think that they're going to ask, which if anyone in here has ever watched Shark Tank, the first 10 questions are pretty obvious. What's your sales, what's your product, do you have a patent, whatever. But when you get up to 50, you really vetted out anything. You're really pushing to think about any weird questions. And then she wanted me to answer those questions. And anyone who owns a business has questions that you do not like to be asked because, I don't know, maybe there's flaws in...
What are some of those questions?
So, what are the questions for me? My tax records, I'm just kidding. So, with those 50 questions, ask yourself those questions, and then, it helps you, with the reply. How do you have a good reply? Honestly, a tough question that we have a lot of times at our booth is the price of a product. Is we're basically the Chanel of tools right now. So we're working with Mac Tools and Snap-on, so really high end. So we work on those questions and vet them out.
And how have you been overcoming that question when you're talking to
people?
So
people will come up to the booth and they'll say, how much are the Grypmats? And I typically will say something like, well, they're normally $1 million a piece, but we have a show special. And then I'll say the lower price. Yeah, so start out really high and then go lower. Or what I've done before is they'll ask me the price and I'll say, if you like cheap tools, you're not in the right place. And then, of course, no one's going to be like, yeah, I like cheaper stuff. So then they'll be like, well, what's the price? And then be like, well, it's really high quality, and I'll say some, value propositions of the product. And then I'll say the price, and I'll be like, it's $165 for all three. You're like, oh, well, that's not that bad.
So by the time you get to the price, you've already convinced them of the value of the product. So does it make it easier sell?
Yeah, right.
Great. So continuing in that vein of pitching, what are some of the things that were helpful for you in preparing that you think could be useful for other business owners that are preparing for a big pitch, whether it's to Shark Tank or investors or just even a business competition?
Yeah, I would say just repetition, just getting out and speaking anywhere you can. I was going to Sundown Rundown, Wake Up Startup. There's several other entities. What I've seen with a lot of people is that if you are, a couple different things. If you are nervous, typically other people cannot tell that you're nervous. So just keep that in mind. Typically anyone that's on stage is nervous. And then try to if you are physically showing that you're nervous, let's say your hands are shaking. So do not do this. Put it close to your chest. So then, therefore, if you're doing this, it's going to shake. So try to keep the shakes down. I've seen people who are shaking a lot, that like hold a piece of paper, and then the paper's just shaking and it's distracting. So yeah, just things like that. What I have seen before is that if you can get someone in the front, like we didn't do this on purpose, but kind of like someone you can like look at, and that kind of like makes you feel more comfortable, especially if you're in like a crowd with a lot of people you don't know.
Yeah. So in talking about pitching, you know, we got coffee and you were telling me about getting ready for Shark Tank. And you told me about the practice pitch, and but it did not go well.
Yeah.
So tell me, you know, what that feeling was like to have that not go as planned, and then how, you know, you kind of use that as motivation for your final pitch that obviously went super well.
Yeah, so what happens with Shark Tank is that basically there's like no commitment that you will be on the show. So before you pitch, you have to do a practice pitch. So sometimes the practice pitch will contradict if you pitch in front of sharks. So practice pitch is just in front of the cast, you know, the camera crew, the producers, and the director. So with Shark Tank, you can actually like fly out to LA, hang out at the hotel, and they'll just say, hey, sorry, we couldn't pitch you in. You could do a practice pitch, and they'll still say, hey, sorry, we couldn't pitch you in. So I did the practice pitch, bombed it really bad, and I was like, I said to the producer who was like way in the back, I was like, can you do one more? And he's making like a beeline towards me in the front, and he's like, no, we don't have time. Well, the thing is, if you see my episode, I had a jet on stage. Well, I had a jet with me in the practice pitch, and he just like comes up and starts taking selfies with the jet. And then everyone just starts getting up and like starts taking selfies with the jet. It was kind of like a room like this with roughly this many people. So I was like super nervous, did really bad. There's a point where I froze, and my producer had to like yell out the next line to get me to keep going. And afterwards, I was like walking off, and I felt like I just blew it. Like I'm not gonna, you know, I came this far, and then like I'm not gonna get on the show. And at the time, my guy Ray just came on board like 2 weeks prior, and the producer goes up to Ray and says, is he religious? Can you like get him to pray?
Oh man,
that's
intense.
Yeah. So then the next day we had basically a free day. There was like 2 Shark Tank groups, and the other group was filming that day. So Ray and I just practiced in the parking lot for like the entire day. So Ray used to work for ESPN, so he like really helped me with like my pitch of like get more energy here, you know, don't shake your hand so much or whatever. And there was actually a point where we took a break to like go over to SpaceX to get like, I'm like a huge Elon Musk fan, so to get some like motivation.
Yes.
So that's kind of fun.
Great. And you know, when we have talked about this before, you kind of had this moment in the middle of all this where you were talking to someone and the idea of imposter syndrome came up.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit more about, you know, kind of what that means and, you know, how that kind of played into that pivotal moment for you.
Yeah, so especially like right after bombing the pitch, I was texting my buddy Jay Klaus, who's here in town. I went to high school with Jay, and he's like, you probably have imposter syndrome, and I didn't know what that was, which imposter syndrome means like you basically feel like you're faking it the entire time, and you're about to be exposed. And I'm like, I've been making this shit in my basement, I'm about to present it to billionaires. Like, I'm about to get exposed. So after like realizing what my issue was, it gave me like more confidence of like, okay, this is the problem, and that definitely helped with the confidence. So then, and that was before we practiced out in the parking lot the whole day. So I think it was pretty critical of that happening like right after bombing the practice pitch. Yeah.
So you obviously, you know, overcame that and went on to do great things. So what advice would you, you know, give to a business owner that feels like they're faking it?
Just keep faking it. At the end of the day, we're all kind of faking it. You know, no one really knows what they're doing at the end of the day. All the time, I kind of feel like, I mean, with my team and everything, there's something will happen. I'm like, I'm just making it up right now. Last night, I was talking to our guy Tyler, and I was like, I might seem scatterbrained at times because I am, because I'm constantly like making things up as I go. So yeah, you just over time get better at making things up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel you. So you mentioned you talked to Jay. So tell us more about some of the people or resources in Columbus that have been instrumental in helping you build Grypmat.
Yeah, so I came to originally so Jay and I honestly weren't that good of friends in high school. Jay was doing startup weekend stuff, like would help volunteer and organize, and I won a startup weekend in Toledo, and I just started volunteering at the Columbus Startup Weekends just because it was like really good for networking. And that's honestly how I met Lucas, Lucas leads all of our sales. And yeah, I just, through the Startup Weekend, it was so well connected throughout the entire city that it was very beneficial to be a part of that program. And yeah, we have seen a lot of like local love, which was really exciting, especially like with Mac Tools, who is 20 minutes north from here. So Mac Tools is one of the, they call it the big four in the tool truck world. They're probably like the second or third biggest tool truck company. So, yeah.
So why did you decide to make that transition from Toledo to Columbus?
Honestly, so I had a really big trade show, Oshkosh, in 2016. It was the first time I ever sold a Grypmat. So I brought 600 Grypmats to the trade show. And the first day I sold 14, and I was like, damn, this isn't gonna work. And by the end of the show, I ended up selling out. So I went home and I decided I was gonna sell my house and put all the money into more inventory. And I was couch surfing for a while, and I was actually supposed to stay at my cousin's girlfriend's place, which is crazy because they're getting married on Saturday. But she was like, yeah, I'm actually going out. Probably not a good idea to stay here. And it was like 11 o'clock at night. I'm like, dude, are you serious? And I asked Louisa Lee, who I met through Startup Weekend, I was like, hey, can I crash on your couch? And she was like, yeah, sure. And then as we're like going up to her apartment, she's like, I'm looking for a subleaser. And because one of her roommates was moving out, and I was like, dude, I'm in. I was about to sleep in my car. So yeah. It's not like a big romantic thing of like, I picked Columbus because it's super fitting. It was because I was honestly desperate.
So it sounds like you've met some great people along the way, but what kind of collaborations are you looking for as you continue to grow the business?
Specifically in Columbus?
Specifically in Columbus.
I guess collaborations specifically in Columbus. I feel that Columbus is pretty savvy in the health industry, like the medical industry, and that's something that the Grypmat has been growing into. I think that there is a lot of headway with that space, especially with the Grypmat, because right now it has been used in several surgeries, and like with Cardinal Health.
What does that look like when it's used in the medical industry?
Yeah, so what happens is like, has anyone ever heard of, someone going through surgery and then it's always like in a news article or something, like someone gets sewn up with scissors inside the leg or something.
Any medical show on television, that's normally a plot line somewhere along the way.
Right. So basically, just like the car mechanics are constantly putting tools in the Grypmat so they don't lose them or leave them underneath the car. Same concept, don't lose your tools and won't have them sewn up into the patient. But yeah, and a couple other different things are like, they call it a safe zone. So let's say you're a surgeon and you ask me for a scalpel and I hand it to you. There's a potential I might stab you because you've been working on this patient for 14 hours straight. So instead of me handing it to you, I set it into the safe zone and then you pick it up out of the safe zone. So yeah, we were working with the Nationwide Child Hospital. Children's Hospital, yeah.
So was that kind of new industry for Grypmat something you guys discovered, or was like Shark Tank instrumental in that? How have you been like branching out into these different industries?
So how that happened was we did a Kickstarter, and then we like did this like an email blast or something. And no, I'm sorry, that was different. I did a Kickstarter, and someone emailed me asking if the Grypmat could be autoclaved. And I was like, I don't even know what that means. Autoclave is a system to sanitize stuff for surgery. So basically like up to 300 degrees for like 15 minutes. So, which I knew it could withstand those temperatures, so I was like, yeah, sure. And then he replied back with it being used on like back surgery, like this lady's like laying face down and has like, you know, medical stuff all over her, and then he's got
So they sent you an actual picture of
yeah,
his toe.
like
Wow.
this is happening.
All right.
And I showed people were like, is this staged? Like, how is this
Yeah.
real? I'm like, no, it's
Is it the weirdest place you've seen Grypmat?
No, but it's up there. Yeah. Several times people made brownies with someone made brownies with it, and then we made brownies. We, as in a kill back there, who made brownies with it. I would recommend that. You can, I guess. I've never thought about it, but
There you go.
yeah.
You learned something new. You know, as you're kind of getting into these different industries and looking at this, the growth of the business, what's next? Where do you want Grypmat to be in 5 years?
Yeah, so what's probably like immediately what's next is we have SEMA, which is a really big automotive show. It's one of the biggest automotive shows in the world. Then Q4, like holidays. So if you have a hardware product, Christmas season's like a fist fight. So we're going to get through the holidays, and then immediately after that is going to be designing new products and really expanding into a lot of different markets. So we got like a lot of really unique products that we're going to be getting into. Some of them are very irrelevant to the Grypmat, so stay tuned. And then some of them are going to be very niche to like aviation and stuff like that.
So when you say getting into new markets, what kind of markets are you looking
Top
at?
secret. But I know you'll be interested.
Reporter questions. So, and I heard you say on Shark Tank that kind of as Grypmat grows, you really kind of want to be the inventor. You want to be coming up with these new products. And to do that, you really have to put a team in place. So tell us more about the process of kind of finding the right people and putting your team together so you can be in the role that you want to be in.
Yeah. So we've definitely been growing our team. We actually brought on 3 VFAers on about 3 months ago. So
tell us what VFA means.
So Louisa Lee, my past roommate, she was a VFAer. So VFA basically finds people that are really interested in being a part of startups. They want to typically work on small teams and grow the company. And VFA really vets out the right people to be a part of the startup community. And you know, living with Louisa, seeing all of her friends over through VFA, they were always like super professional. So I was like, you know, this is a great pool to you know, try to hire from. So yeah, that's where we started. That's a really good program, so if anyone's looking to hire. One thing that's kind of tough with the program is that it's seasonal, so they're pulling a lot of kids that are like out of college. So basically, you'll like vet them out roughly in like June, and then all of July they'll be at VFA training camp, and then August 1st is like when around that area is when they can start. So, you know, if it's December and you need someone desperately, don't look for VFA. But if you can wait it out, you know, and the timing lines up, it's definitely worth checking out.
Great. And as you guys grow, are you planning to look for any more funding? And if you are, how do you think that your experience on Shark Tank is going to help you with that?
Yeah, so short answer is we're not looking for funding. We're pretty strong with our sales, that we can grow dependently on our sales. Something that is very nice is that, especially like having Mark and Branson on our team, is they basically have told us, like, if you ever need money, just let us know. So before you go out like looking for a different investor, you know, to basically check with them, which is really nice because I got a lot of friends who are with other sharks and they're trying to raise. I'm like, why don't you just ask your shark? And they're like, maybe you can.
Sounds like you're in a good position.
Yeah,
So that,
yeah.
you know, it kind of goes to my next question is, you know, is watching you pitch and like you kind of held out and you waited till you got what you wanted and, you know, kind of offered up this deal. So, you know, tell us why it's important to kind of advocate for yourself as a business owner and really kind of stick to your guns and what you want.
Yeah. I guess for that situation specifically, it was kind of like, you know, the day before I was thinking about, I didn't even think I was going to get on there. So it's like, we're going to swing for the fences, we're going to keep, knock it out of the park, or we're going to get thrown off stage, one of the two. So yeah, sometimes you got to do that. You got to stand for what you want, and yeah, it just kind of. You also got to know like when to do that. Sometimes you can't, you don't want to get thrown out because that could be critical to your business. But yeah, I guess resiliency is super big. Resiliency and persistence, because I see a lot of people. Actually, I was on the phone with someone the other day, and he said something to me along the lines of like, well, we have 7 months to raise basically like $100,000, and I'm thinking you just started working on this project like a week ago. So his like 7 months is not a long time.
Right.
If it's 3 years, like if he's working on this for 3 years, I would believe him. He could probably raise $100,000. But you've been working on a project for a week, unless if you have a history of raising $100,000 that quick, but he doesn't.
Just can't walk out there and ask for money.
Right.
Unexpected.
There's a guy I went to high school with who's like a history teacher, and I'm like, just because you're on the phone with me, I'm not going to give you $100,000. But yeah.
Great. We got to wrap it up, but one last question. So tell us why Columbus has been a great place to build your business.
I think it's mostly the strong community, and especially like through the startup weekend, being connected to Startup Weekend, I am confident, Startup Weekend and through DFA, I'm confident that like any company in town, I could easily get connected with. So yeah, everyone's super accessible, super easy to connect with, and yeah, I mean, if you're part of programs like Wave, or there's a lot of different programs that you can get connected with. So basically, the talent that's super approachable.
The Columbus way.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much,
Cool.
Tom.
Thank you.